Veteran Mavuso Msimang. A very good afternoon to you, sir. The former president of the ANC says if they don't renew the ANC will die. Is the party not dying already?
Well, I guess the president, former president, is frustrated with the rate at which the renewal exercise is going on. Renewal, of course, is the code name for flushing out people who are corrupt, who continue to remain in the leadership at a time when there's a conference coming up, when there's unrest in the country, and when, in short course, we'll be looking at the 2024 election. So he says unless urgent steps are taken to ensure that these things are corrected, remove people who should not be in the leadership, in the ANC, and then you'll save the ANC.
I asked if the ANC is not dying already precisely because of some of the other issues that you've just referenced, but some would say perhaps that's put more plainly by the continued slide downwards in the ANC's electoral performance, because at the beginning of this country's democracy, the ANC could easily be above 60-65% of electoral support, but when you look at it now, there are even predictions that it may fall well below 50 in 2024.
Well, that's absolutely the challenge. I mean, we've seen evidence of the decline, and there's no debate about that. And we also know the reasons why we are in decline. The frustration has been that in spite of these things which have manifested themselves over a number of years, shown in elections, whether they were local government or national, the decline has been evident, but we aren't making sufficient strides to ensure that we turn this around. And the reason is that we really have not been able to remove people. It's one thing to have people charged, for instance, who are implicated in the Zondo Commission. That's the business of the courts. But you cannot really expect people who see persons who are associated with corruption publicly continuing to sing the song of renewal when things are like this. That is worrying. I think if decisive action were taken, I absolutely have no doubt, maybe late in the day, that the many people who support the ANC, I think it talks about also people who did not, from Soweto, who did not vote for the ANC the last time around, but who didn't go to other parties because they still hope and believe that the ANC is the organization that will carry everybody into the future.
But why does the ANC find it so difficult then to purge itself of corrupt elements if it's not the party that's corrupt?
That is the big challenge. There is a need for a greater resolve to do these things. It's never a pleasant job to tackle people who are doing these things. You know, for starters, by the way, in many organizations, one has seen something called falling on one's sword. We are not having an abundance of that or any evidence of that. By falling on the sword, of course, as you know, Tembi, is when you feel that when you've been accused of a wrongdoing, a very serious wrongdoing, you decide in the interest of the organization with which you're associated to step back so that what is happening now in the ANC ceases to happen, because your problem is being resolved without you being in the face of the public, when everybody in the public knows you to be associated with corruption. So when people don't fall on their swords, it requires then action by the collective to ensure that they do get removed. I know the step-aside rule has been put in place. Happily, when some of the people thought it should be removed, the collective insisted that it could not be removed at all. But I think it should be more than just the technicality of stepping. The whole object of asking somebody to step aside is to make sure that the image, they don't sit jarringly in the face of the public as representatives of the ANC, that they should step aside. It's technical now, unless somebody has been charged,
right,
they will not step aside. But, that's the problem.
I'd like to zone in on the former president's comment yesterday that it's not the ANC that's corrupt, but some elements within the party, and paraphrasing, who are corrupt, and refer you to the Zondo Commission of Inquiry in this line from the report that the ANC under former President Jacob Zuma permitted, supported, and enabled corruption. So at this point, is the level of rot alleged or confirmed in the organization not so far-running or entrenched that it's simply near impossible to divorce the party from the wrongdoing?
Yes, I don't think we should be deluded by the fact that, let me just say, in Zuma's time, you actually had the organization captured. If the president of the ANC himself was declaring himself to be friends with people who were corrupting the organization and undermining the state, that was a different thing. We don't have that now. We don't have the organization captured in the sense that it is participating through the appointment of senior people in positions like in state organizations that advance state corruption. But the point remains, the situation remains in which people who ought not to be in leadership are still in leadership. It requires a greater determination by those who really want to project a clean ANC to, by persuasion or whatever means, make sure that ANC is not associated with corruption. As long as people like that are in leadership, will be associated with corruption. It's not the ANC. I don't know. I don't want to be pedantic about these things. If top leaders in the ANC, if they are seen to be corrupt, it's, for me, whether you say it's the party or people who are corrupt, it doesn't make too much difference.
But it says something about the party's membership, even the people who aren't perhaps high-ranking in the ANC, when, as we saw in the provincial and regional conferences, delegates are still willing to nominate people and even elect people accused of corruption. In the case of Zandile Kumete in eThekwini, there was also in Mpumalanga the election of someone who's accused at the moment of murder. So does the rank and file really care about renewal and purging the party of wrongdoers, alleged or, once again, confirmed?
That is really part of the problem that we have. The organization has absorbed a lot of elements who really have nothing to do with the values of the African National Congress. The fact that branches, which really democratically would be the strongest, the grassroots structures of the party, have been so easily corrupted in the past, to the extent that people are proposing a change now in how these things are managed, says a lot about the type of person who has infiltrated the ANC and who is causing so much of the problems for the organization. Yes, so it's not problems at leadership level only. The mass of the organization does have a strong a person who doesn't understand the values of the ANC or adheres to them will be easy to bribe by those who still want to stay in power. And what you're talking about in terms of provincial, regional conferences, nominating people who are really should not be there, it's indicative of the extent to which the ANC has been hollowed out in terms of its ordinary members.
Do the people arrive corrupt, or are they corrupted in the ANC?
Sorry, repeat the question?
One wonders if the people, these elements that are spoken of, arrive in the ANC corrupt, or if they're corrupted within the organization.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the people came in not with the aim of achieving the objectives of the ANC. They were pursuing self-interest, either business interests or other opportunities, because the ANC was clearly going to be in government and did remain in government. It implemented the Black Economic Empowerment program very badly. In fact, they got encouraged because people thought by donating some money into the ANC, even if they're not qualified to do the things for which they were given contracts, that was part of the problem. A lot of the people. So, but you cannot say that everybody inside who was here before these elements came in has remained innocent. There's been serious problems. I don't know the extent to which we are corrupt, but a lot of our people do not understand the objectives of the ANC and do not implement them.
A quick final one then. Former President Thabo Mbeki, whenever he's spoken out about the ANC's need for renewal and what's gone wrong in the organization, people always say, well, he's a fine one to talk, given that much of the problems really became ingrained during his time as president and when Jacob Zuma was deputy. Does he still have any moral standing to be making these calls when you consider how much of the trouble started back then?
Well, there is a really big difference. Yes, corruption started a long time ago. It precedes the administration of Jacob Zuma. It's not as if there were no attempts to fight it. Yes, there are things that could have been tackled differently. I think really it can be said of him. I'm not aware that he would be shy to say he's not corrupt, or I couldn't lift a finger and say Thabo can't. The former president can't talk about corruption. He has stood against corruption, and he has valued the principles of the organization. He has made mistakes, in my opinion, on certain issues, but they certainly did not have anything to do with ethics. So I would not disqualify him from being a critic of what's going on in the organization now and in the past. To be too rich, really, to expect anybody to disqualify him on that score.
We could, I suppose, go into the broader technicalities around what had happened around the arrest of now a late former police commissioner, Jekisile, but unfortunately we're out of time. Mavuso Msimang, thank you so much for being on Daytime Update today. Let's remind